The Boy Wonder issue 2, Juni both writing and art. So
Hmm.
this I found quite charming last time. I thought it was a very easy read. I think issue 2
Hmm.
was kind of more of that. I mean, yeah, it was focused on a lot of Red Hood, which
Hmm.
inherently is less exciting, but that obviously that's down to taste, and your opinion may vary
Yeah.
on such a thing. But yeah, well, you didn't read issue 1 when it came out, but you've caught up for issue
No,
2.
I caught up.
I assume you liked issue 1 since you read issue 2.
Yeah, I liked it, and I liked hearing what you were talking about. So when I read it, it wasn't a lack of um like I wanted to read it. I didn't have time that week. So catching up on it, and I like the storybook aspect of it. Like it feels like you're reading not a kid story, but again like a fairy tale. And who's ever telling the story to the kidnapper, seems to be having very has intimate knowledge of the Bat family. And so they're me telling the story and calling Damien the prince and whatever. I like how that doubles down here, because we get to see kind of if Damien's the prince, what does that make Jason? Right? He's kind of like this failed kind of member in of the Bat family, but so is Damien at this point, right? Because he's kind of grounded for chopping that dude's head off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I like that Junie Bob plays with the, you know, this is the black sheep of the Bat family, but so am I. Where do I fit in like Jason? So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sets up a little bit of Jason, and that he's kind of like ostracized from the group a little bit right now. He's living on his own in a crappy apartment.
Hmm.
And Damien comes to him for help, and he even paints a really sad picture. It looks like the manager of the building that he's living in
Hmm.
dies. Like you see him introduced to him, but then like the next couple of
Hmm.
pages, you see like flowers around the door saying Bill Baxter,
Yeah.
manager. It really sets up a thing. And there's like a kid with like a box painted red, pretending to be
Uh,
Red Hood out in the hall at one point as well. But yeah, so Red Hood goes home, and Damien comes in just before he takes off his helmet to eat his chocolate bar. And he's like, hey, there's a thing going on. We gotta go. You're gonna help me. And Red Hood's just like, nope, nope, not doing it. Nope,
mm,
not helping a goddamn thing. But Damien insists. One of my favorite things about the art here, which is again, the art is very stylized, and I'm not always to the taste of the faces. But every single time there's a panel of Damien in silhouette where his head's like kind of like half into his
mm,
like cape, where
hmm.
where he's like he's got his collar very high, and
Yeah.
his eyes are just sort of peering out over it. Every time I love it. Every time it
Yep.
just suits Damien
It's
to a
almost
T.
like he's too small for the cape. It's like he's trying to
Yes.
fill up more space than he can, right? And so yeah, it is. And it just I'm always a fan of the Damien furrowed eyes, because he's taking things way too seriously for an 11-year-old.
Well, of course, of course. Uh, and there's even like a nice little metaphorical visual bit here where Damien goes to open a door and Red Hood says, no, don't go in there. That's where I keep all the stuff I don't want to look at. And then the
Hmm.
next page is this full page spread of like Damien having opened this door, and it's just a completely black room. And the only thing that's in there is the beheaded guy that he killed. And it's kind of this idea that this room represents where all your baggage goes. And so far, this is what
Hmm.
Damien's put in there. He's put in
Yep.
this beheading of this man. So, yeah. But so yeah, it even shows they're kind of similar because it shows that Red Hood like has the horns at one point as well.
Yep.
Again the symbolic horns. They're not as
Well,
big as Damien's,
no,
because Damien obviously thinks he's
he is. Well,
bigger.
yeah, because he's of the demon, right? He's from that lineage, whereas Jason has just been reborn through Ra's al Ghul, right? Like so, they're of the same, but they're not the same. So I do like that visual representation because they're quite different too, right? Like Jason's look more like traditional devil horns,
Yes.
and Damien's look more, like kind of flowery, almost like kind of Wolverine, kind of same vibe as Wolverine's hair, right? It comes up and over, but yeah. So I like that. Also, I don't think we see Jason's face until the end.
No, no, because
So
he almost takes his helmet off when Damien's coming
yeah,
in, but then that
yeah.
interrupts him and he keeps it on. So
And I
that
really like that because you never get the emotion from Jason,
yeah, they're
right? It's
doing
just
it's almost like a Judge Dredd thing. This idea he
yeah.
never takes off his helmet because he doesn't want to
Hmm.
be vulnerable. He doesn't ever want to show anyone
That's That's what I'm saying. It hides his emotional state better than anything. And I really like that thorough line through the whole issue.
Yeah, there's an interesting bit here actually when they're traveling to go to wherever, and Damien's like, "Hey, have you heard from my mother?" And Jason's like, "Wait, no. Why would I have?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, you did get brought back in a Lazarus pit. I thought maybe there'd be something."
Yeah.
And I actually think the panel flashing back to Jason climbing out of the Lazarus pit with the bandages like a mummy, it looked really cool.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of ghastly.
Yeah, it's really stylized. It feels like an old, like, sort of pulpy version of like a Universal monster movie or something. I'm kind of into it. So they're hunting down this thing that's kidnapping people. That's obviously what the first issue set up. That's what Damien wanted help with. And we get to see this guy in his white suit. Again, he's got horns, so it obviously ties into the whole themes of the demons and all that. Obviously, we know he has like wings that can spout, but when they see him, he's just like really slim and he's got a cane, and he comes across very kind of suave, but he starts beating away Damien with his cane. And there's some fun stuff here with them kind of yelling, and Damien keeps yelling "no guns," and Jason's like, you tell me what I can do. A bunch of stuff like that. So yeah, it's fun. I really like though the villain here. It's no wonder your mother never came back to you. He kind of pushes that button, and it's already been set up for the reader that Damien maybe has some insecurities about that because he was just asking Jason, "Have you heard from her?" And the very next page, the panel at the top, Damien yells "shut up" as he runs in to punch the villain. But an interesting little touch here is that there's no speech bubble. It's just big yellow text painted into the panel, almost as if he's yelling it so loud. It's not a bit of speech anymore. It gives this idea that it's like a wall of sound coming for him. Not that it's successful, because the guy literally just puts his foot out and trips him. It makes him look a bit shit. So this guy does have powers though, because he says "stay put," and you get like this visual of Damien's face inside his little speech bubble, and then in the next panel, Damien's frozen still. He can't move, as if by some magic force. So Jason's like, "What the hell did you do?" And then the guy puts some like green magic energy into Damien's eyes.
Jason's eyes.
Oh, sorry, in Jason's eyes, sorry, yeah. And it basically gives Jason a villain of his greatest fear, which, would you believe it, it's the Joker, because the Joker beat the shit out of him.
It's consistent.
Yeah, oh no, it absolutely is. So Jason starts firing his guns off like willy-nilly, trying to hit the villain. And the villain just sort of like tips his top hat as he's just like not even moving to avoid these bullets. He's just not worried about them hitting him. So they're definitely going for this kind of like the very suave version of the devil. They were not the big monster devil, but the one who's in a suit and speaks like with a very affluent style and knows what he's doing. But he just says
a very fancy devil.
Yeah, he says like "bye bye" and flies off with his big white bird wings. As he does. So Damien kind of finally like snaps out of it and kind of like he's all sort of hazy. The art does a good job of like doing all these like wavy lines coming from him to show that it's kind of, but he collapses and Jason takes him back to his place and patches him up from he got shot here, right? Yeah,
he gets shot. Yeah, so when he just starts firing, right, because he has the devil has messed with his vision.
Jason starts firing specifically.
Jason starts firing. He ends up hitting Damien because Damien couldn't move.
Yes.
Right, and that's where I love that Damien goes, "I said no guns," and that's his last words before he passes out. Yeah,
cut to we're back at Jason's and he's patching Damien up. So basically, Jason kind of opens up about Batman a little bit and finally takes off his helmet. And he's basically, Batman cares so much about you and keeping you safe and making sure you're okay. Why couldn't you do the same for me? And that's the full page where he takes his helmet off. So he still has this kind of, this feeling that Batman didn't care about him as much. And we get a quick flashback. Although, I will say that if we're going to get a flashback to the Joker beating him up with the crowbar, I will say doing this weird abstract version of Joker where he's just a bunch of big smiley faces in the shape of a bat logo is really funny.
Yeah, And it's more startling than anything too, because it is absolute horror.
Oh, it's super creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Again, if I have to see the crowbar, like I have to see the pearls, at least make it something fun to read.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, like I'm not the thing that he should protect anymore. I'm just simply a failure. This is kind of what he ends up with.
Mm-hmm.
But Damien says that's not true. I beheaded someone. I'm kind of in, a same boat right now. So yeah.
Well, I like that he says, after scolding me for 6 hours, he told me about you. He didn't describe you as a failure. He said the failure was his for not knowing how to make you better. And I'm not proud of it, but through all that speech was, why can't he be as understanding with me?
Yeah.
And I love that because it is a kid not understanding parenting, right? Like each person's different, and how he, parents. Damien is going to be different than Jason, right? Because they're different people. But just seeing that from a kid's point of view, it really, it really hit the emotional parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, Damien's basically saying that, like, from his perspective, like, he cares more about Jason than he does himself.
Yeah.
And then when he leaves, he just makes a point of saying, just, you've not been abandoned, Jason. So Jason, who's been sitting in this crappy one-room apartment with just like a mattress on the floor, that's what we spent a lot of time introducing early on in the issue. He gets up and walks through that door to the things that he doesn't want to face, which was set up earlier. That one where Damien opened it and it was just the guy who was beheaded. So it's just, it's this idea that by the end of the story, Damien has helped Jason kind of like face up to what he's hiding from. So it's kind of an interesting story, and it's very different from his like story with Dick last time.
Yep.
So yeah, really interesting. And it says next time Red Robin, so yeah, Tim's obviously going to be the focus next one.
What I like about that last page is that the door, like the room that the door is blocking, is no longer dark. There's light coming from it, and that just shows, the light is hope, and that, Jason can one day, join back those ranks, because now he feels worthy of it. And I thought that simple image right there says so much without any dialogue or any, there's no real text there. So
yeah, I think Juni Ba, unlike some artists who also write their own stuff, like it does trust himself to tell some of the story with the art. Sometimes I feel like writer-artist combinations, sometimes they overword things because they don't like, which is weird because you think they trust their art more because they're artists.
That was kind of the Travis Moore Nightwing annual, there was a lot of stuff there.
That's not the worst example of it, but yeah, kind of like that, yeah.
But on those lines, but yeah, here it's you could almost, in theory, do this like a silent issue, and you'd still get almost as much, But yeah, I also want to point out the villain, the devil guy. He said his name is Rock, and if you look up Rock in Middle Eastern mythology, it's this gigantic bird. Like a giant mythological bird.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's what he keeps turning into and whatever. And I thought there'd be a deeper meaning, but really at the end of the day, it's just a giant bird. It's not like a shape changer or whatever. So I also feel like this is, Damien's version of what the devil is, right? And it's kind of, whatever it is kind of tempt him.
I mean, if nothing else, it makes sense it's a bird because we're doing a story about the Robins.
Yep, so, of course. Yeah. But yeah. But yeah, very, very good. I'm glad I got caught up because this is, it's an exercise in storytelling, I think, too.
Yeah, honestly, we're getting for a
Damien.
book that's almost 40 pages, it flew in, to be honest. It does not feel like it takes a long time to read at all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so, hey, this was a good story about Jason this week.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Jason here, his voice was really, really well because it wasn't ever really pity poor me. Right? He was like, I'm broken. I can't be fixed. This is what I do now. And how that plays off of Damien. So, yeah.
The art's pretty much very, very good. And the reason why I say that instead of just outright excellent is because I don't necessarily always love the faces in this art style. But I think it works for certain characters, particularly Damien and Red Hood when he's got his mask on. But I think more than that, it does do a good job with the layouts of telling the story, with the choice of like when the colors in the background change, or just like it flows so well. So for any little nitpicks that I can make for like maybe sometimes not loving how something on its own looks, the story always flows, and it like the pacing of it's always perfect. So I do think Juni Ba is a very strong sequential artist, and I think that's what's on show here.
As and with the silhouettes too, right? Like. There's a lot of storytelling through that with just, Damien's eyes popping up out of there like we talked about.
Yeah.
And even the Rock character, you don't ever really get a lot of details with him. but it's all white instead of black. So, but very, very, very skilled in what Juni is doing.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, what are you giving The Boy Wonder issue 2?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 8.5. I think this is maybe even the best thing I read this week, which is impressive.